For decades, human beings have been building machines designed to think faster, answer quicker, learn patterns, solve problems, and make life easier. And honestly, part of that is incredible. Need directions? Done. We need ideas? Done. We need help writing? Done. Need somebody to talk to at 2 a.m. because your mind won't shut off? Apparently, done. I came down to Miami to do some exploring this week. Just see something different for a few days. And being down here has honestly made me think a lot. It's been a hot minute since I've stayed in a major city. And I had forgotten that big city energy feels very different than, back roads, small towns, country living. Everything here moves so fast. And everywhere you look, people are connected digitally, but disconnected emotionally. Everybody's on their phones. Everybody's moving. Everybody's reachable. But the atmosphere somehow still feels tense, stressed, almost emotionally overloaded. And I started wondering, why does modern life feel this way now? Is it just phones? Is it social media? Is it constant stimulation? Artificial intelligence can answer questions for us. It can organize thoughts. It can recognize patterns. It can even sound compassionate sometimes. But AI still can't hug you back. Let's talk about it.
Hey, Steffi K, got something to say. Talk that listens, clears the way. Truth on the mic, grounded in change. You sticking with that? Oh yeah, we sticking with that. Laugh it out, talk it through, we ain't looking back.
Some chats ain't easy, but we take it slow. Tough stuff tackle now, watch us glow.
You sticking with it? Yeah, we sticking with that.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to You Sticking With That? I'm Steffi K, and today we're diving into artificial intelligence, technology, connection, loneliness, how to stay human in a world becoming more artificial by the day. Now, before anybody panics, this isn't any kind of a scary episode. You won't find any of that here. There's no robots coming. We're putting a stop to that right now, aren't we? But technology has genuinely improved our lives in a lot of ways, right? GPS helps us. Video calls help us. Online banking helps us. And I think that's where this conversation gets deeper than people realize. Because if we are emotionally connecting to machines, maybe it also says something about what we are no longer getting from each other. Because some people aren't addicted to technology. They're addicted to avoiding silence. And distraction has become so constant. Some people don't even realize how disconnected they feel anymore. So I've had a couple situations come up with friends lately that I want to talk about. I had a friend who had a new job offer come through. She had gone through 2 interviews and then was hired. As part of the final hiring process, they had her do a one-on-one meeting with top management. So like the president and the owner and the CFO and whatnot. And what she discovered was upon accepting the position and then doing these interviews that they were kind of bad-mouthing each other. It was crazy stuff. She immediately got a bad feeling about it and ended up declining the job. But before doing so, she consulted with one of the apps that people use. I believe it was the chat one. And asked it for advice on how to handle the situation. And my immediate thought was, that would be something you'd normally call a friend, call a parent, call someone who's, we all have experience with that, right? Being offered jobs that worked out great, jobs that didn't. We usually know people that are in management in some way or the other. And I'm not saying the app didn't give her the right advice. I think it did. I agree she shouldn't work there if the situation is toxic. But I just felt that that's a situation where maybe our first instinct should be to phone a friend. On the other side, I have a friend who's actively dating, and she loves to use one of the apps for how to respond to text messages and if she should call, not call, and basically using it as a factor in her decision making, whether or not to build a relationship with people that she meets along the way. And in this case, she is consulting friends also. It caused me to ask the question, is there a line there in relationships and communication that we really shouldn't be crossing? Have you ever stopped to think who actually created AI? And first of all, when people talk about AI, sometimes they talk about it like it suddenly appeared out of nowhere, like some mysterious thing dropped from the sky. Back in the 1950s, people were already asking, can machines think? We have always been fascinated by intelligence outside ourselves. We created calculators because we wanted faster math, computers because we wanted faster information, internet because we wanted faster connection, and now AI because we want faster thinking. But every time we create something powerful, eventually we have to ask, but what is this changing about us? Because tools never just change life externally, they slowly shape behavior internally too. Cars changed cities, social media changed attention spans, smartphones changed communication. And AI? AI isn't just changing information. It may be changing our whole experience and way of thinking as well. And that's where we have to be careful. Because convenience and connection are not the same thing. A phone notification is not presence. A comment section is not intimacy. A chatbot is not companionship. And listen, I'm not judging. I understand why people are drawn to it. Because we're tired. We are overwhelmed, disconnected, heartbroken, distracted, emotionally exhausted. And sometimes technology feels easier than vulnerability. A machine doesn't reject you, doesn't interrupt you, doesn't abandon you, and it doesn't betray you. But it also doesn't truly know you. It doesn't sit beside you at a funeral. It doesn't cry when your heart breaks. It doesn't laugh until it can't breathe. It doesn't pray for your child. It doesn't hold your hand in a hospital room. That's human territory. A few years back, I was at an event with my travel group, and for a while there we had events regularly, like maybe every other weekend, probably even weekly for a while there. Anyway, we were at an event center, and this one time and one time only, the crowd kind of got out of their seats and they formed, a human train. I don't know what song prompted the whole thing, but just picture hundreds of people in like a conga line going around the event center, and I missed it. I was getting coffee upstairs. And it was one of those organic, spontaneous things. There was a bunch of us. We laughed for probably 2 hours straight about me missing that. And I got such crap. And it was hilarious. Who knew the one time I would go get coffee? And in fact, it was the only time I ever got coffee at an event. That one time was the time I missed the train. It was unreal. But the laughter that came from that, and AI was nowhere to be found in that. And believe me when I say that impromptu little man-made train is the only train this girl's going to be missing. As I mentioned at the beginning, I am in Miami this week, and I'm staying at kind of a newer hotel, I guess. And I had a new elevator experience I want to share. There's 4 elevators in the hallway, so, to going to the rooms. So if you face the elevators, you have 2 in front of you and 2 behind. Well, you can't just hop in any elevator and hit a button. Nope. Basically, there's a touch screen, and first of all, you type in the floor that you want, and then after that, you have to scan your room key on the little fob thing there, and then it tells you exactly which elevator you will get in. A, B, C, or D are your choices. And then you wait for the doors to open, and you get in, and it'll bring you. So what happened was, let's say you were at the lobby, and you just wanted to hop in someone's elevator, or you're on your floor, and you're wanting to go to a different floor. You can't. It'll only go to the floor that's designated by the person who typed it in with their room key, which is great and all. But there was a mother-daughter riding up and down the elevator, and they didn't speak English, and so they didn't understand how to get to the lobby. So I was able to help them, which poses the question. In the case of a language barrier, how do you even get to your floor? Because they didn't have language options that I saw on the keypad. I don't know. As a side note, one of the things I love to do when I go to a new hotel is explore. Many times I'll stay at a historic one so that I can kind of learn the history, etc. But like I say, this one appears to be a modern one. So I go upstairs, and it kind of looks like something out of a 70s lounge. So the sign on the wall had an arrow pointing to the right, and it said, "Elevator to mission control." And I thought, what on earth is that? So there was actually a door there, no elevator, but a door. And it led to another hallway. And I wasn't sure that it actually would let me back in, so I didn't quite go down that one. But then later, I actually was going to use the hotel phone in my room, and it said on there, Mission Control Extension 40. So I called it, and it's basically the computer voice for the main lobby. So I was wondering if I could get a coffee at midnight, and that wasn't a choice. But I did ask the voice why they call it Mission Control and not the front desk. He said the hotel feels it's important to have a central command point, and that it's just a modern brand twist on front desk. So then later I went and talked to the lady at the front desk, and she knew about the sign, and she said there's no elevator there. So she was going to talk to him about taking the sign down. But I don't understand who put it up if the hotel is new. These are the questions that I come across every day. I had a friend tell me once, AI will give you what you want, but it isn't real. Let's hear that again. AI will give you what you want, but it isn't real. I've been thinking about that a lot. So I think we've all heard about the algorithms on our phone, right? And when we start to think a certain thing or type in certain things repetitively that we're interested in, whether it's, whatever, horses, dogs, winning mindset, what's the name of the airport in Austin, Texas? You start getting memes and stories and different things to show up. And this is with the newer iPhones. I've got some friends that have flip phones, and that seems to make even more sense right now to me than it used to. With the newer iPhones, we have more capabilities, we can do more, but some of the crazy stuff starts happening. We seem to waste more and more time scrolling because the algorithms are giving us what we want, right? And so once we know that, we can start to do things differently. But I think it's important that we don't let that stuff change our emotions and affect our decisions, because I think that's where we run into some problems. I have several friends who are struggling with their relationship with their kids right now. And I really think that has something to do with AI. When I was little growing up, if you had a problem, you'd ask your mom, right? Or ask a grandparent, or ask a relative, or ask anybody that you knew. And now I think they're asking their phone. Sometimes I feel like there's a push to cause some separation there. I don't know why. Too many cases to ignore right now. It just seems to me if we got back to making sure we use technology just for things that are needed, such as, polishing up the wording on a paper, or finding out how many miles between point A and point B, and saving all relationship issues for each other, that wouldn't happen. And that'll probably be a show at a future point. When I go back to the comment that I mentioned earlier about AI will give you what you want, but it isn't real, then the next question is, well, what is real anymore? We're living at a time where it seems like you hear one thing that you're sure is true, and then the next day it's debunked, right? And the opposite is true. And how is this even happening? I really feel strongly that it's time for us to get back to listening to our intuition, to our gut. If something feels off, trust that. If something feels right, trust that. And put the phones down. Just food for thought. We've talked about this before, how there's that saying, hurt people, and we're trying to change that to hurt people, help people. Where does it stop? I just continue to ask myself, how am I helping the situation? Or how can I help this situation? Or how can I react differently than I normally would to get a different outcome, to get a better outcome, to get the best outcome moving forward? Some of the most meaningful parts of life are deeply inefficient. Long conversations, grieving together, road trips, falling in love slowly, holding somebody while they cry. None of that is efficient, but it's real. And somewhere along the way, I think society started confusing speed with fulfillment. Faster responses, faster food, faster entertainment, faster validation. But human healing has never been fast. Trust isn't fast. Depth isn't fast. Love isn't fast. And I think some people are becoming emotionally malnourished while being constantly stimulated. And here's something else that kind of blew my mind recently. There are now apps designed to stop us from using other apps too much. Think about that. There's an app out there where you have to do push-ups before you're allowed to scroll social media. And part of me laughed when I heard that. But another part of me thought, wow, this is deeper than I thought. But this app in particular, you get 1 minute of scroll time for each push-up you do. And the app would be for somebody who spends way too much time scrolling, right? So the exercise piece of that is good. But just think of that. And some of you may be using that and it's helping you. But at what point did we become so attached to scrolling that we need behavioral obstacles to stop ourselves? And listen, I'm not above this conversation either. I catch myself doing it too. You pick up your phone to check one thing, right? And suddenly you're emotionally invested in a stranger renovating a kitchen in Nebraska. 45 minutes gone, brain overstimulated. No memory of how you even got there. And that's the scary part. A lot of phone use isn't intentional anymore. It's reflex. Bored? Phone. Awkward silence? Phone. Waiting in line? Phone. Sad? Phone. Can't sleep? Phone. And what worries me sometimes is that we're losing the ability to simply be, to sit quietly, to think deeply, to process emotions, to notice the world, and to be present with each other. Because distraction keeps interrupting reflection before reflection can actually change us. And can we talk about something else for a second? Because I know I'm not the only person this has happened to. Have you thought of something and you don't even say it out loud? It could be anything, like carrots. And then suddenly a meme about carrots shows up on Facebook 10 minutes later. And immediately everybody goes, oh, okay, that's creepy. And it is creepy because technology has gotten so predictive, it almost feels personal now. You think about dolphins, suddenly dolphins everywhere. You think about a random childhood movie, suddenly there's 3 reels about it. You think about getting your life together, and suddenly Telegram starts emotionally attacking you with motivational videos at 1 a.m. And part of it is algorithms. Part of it is psychology. Part of it is the fact that we are way more predictable than we like admitting. Because apps track patterns now. What we pause on, what we search, what we watch longer, what we emotionally react to. And eventually, technology gets good at predicting us. So I'm going to share a sticking story here. This was back maybe 10 years ago. My friend Becca lived on a lake, and our families would be together for the weekend or whatever. You know how when you're sitting out at night, maybe around the fire, and you get these wonderful, brilliant ideas. And this was one, I think we had about iPhone 13s. And I don't know why I remember that. Anyway, we had this brilliant idea to purchase a large inflatable bull to put on the lake. And we were going to ride this bull. We just thought it'd be, huge entertainment for the families and for each other. That this was just going to be an awesome purchase. So about 3 or 4 days later, and this was back, like I said, about 10 years ago, I think, we started getting ads for this inflatable bull for the lake. And we talked about it. We thought, what is going on? So fast forward, maybe 2 months ago, I was talking to a friend on the phone. And some friends are long-winded. I'm one of those. I am one of those friends, so I can appreciate it. But I sometimes will scroll on Facebook while I'm listening to my friend, which I'm working on that. Anyway, whatever the situation was she was going through at the time, I received a meme on it in real time. I think we were discussing a relationship of some kind. And within seconds of her saying it, I had memes on my phone. And that just seems next level intrusive to me in a lot of ways. Have you guys noticed that with the newer iPhones? And then if we're going there, we got to ask the next question. What is that mind reading thing that they put in the movies? You know what I'm talking about. It's in tons of movies. Telepathy. It seems like there's many of us who've been fascinated with telepathy for many years, right? There's been hundreds and maybe even thousands of movies and TV shows involving mind reading, some kind of psychic communication, or shared consciousness. Hollywood has been obsessed with this idea for decades. And that tells me something. I think we've always desperately wanted deeper understanding because the telepathy stories always revolve around the same things. Secrets exposed, fear of losing privacy, wanting connection without misunderstanding. Science still says there's no proven evidence telepathy is real. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt tension? Have you known that somebody was upset before they even said a word? Have you ever had anyone call you right when you were thinking about them at the same time? These are just a few questions I'm throwing out there. And maybe part of being human is that we've always sensed there's something deeper happening between people than words alone. Not mind reading, not magic, but intuition, emotion, energy, presence. And maybe that's why this AI conversation feels so strange, because we're trying to create artificial understanding while real human understanding is something we still barely know how to explain. Now, some of you might be saying to yourself, well, holy crap, I hope nobody can read my mind because, the thoughts I have are not something I want anyone to know. And I don't know what's going on. But maybe if that could be a thing someday, that would help us with our compassion and empathy towards one another and clean up some of our thoughts, right? At the same time. So maybe this is where balance matters. Because tools are not the enemy. Dependence is the danger. A calculator helps you, but eventually you still need to know to think on your own. GPS helps you, but eventually you should probably know how to get home. And in regards to GPS, those of us that grew up before cell phones, we got around just fine. You always found your way there. Sometimes took the long way, sometimes got a little lost, but you always got to the right destination. You always ended up right where you were supposed to be. AI can help you organize your thoughts, but eventually you still need your own voice. And honestly, I think people are scared that we're slowly losing parts of ourselves. Our critical thinking, our patience, our conversation, our creativity, our attention spans, our empathy. Because if every uncomfortable moment gets escaped immediately, what happens to emotional endurance? If every quiet moment gets filled immediately, what happens to reflection? If every hard conversation gets avoided, what happens to relationships? And let's think about this for a second. Some of y'all are more polite to AI than you are to actual humans. Thank you so much. Wow, that helped a lot. Can you explain that again? Meanwhile, your boyfriend handed you an iced latte before you left for work, and you got absolutely nothing. So on a side note, a few things that I've noticed. I do use one of the apps, the chat one, for some podcast assistance along the way. And I recall back this last fall when I started looking at the different apps to use for recording. I think it was right at episode 1. I was having some struggles with downloading an app onto my laptop, which should have taken about a minute to do. And I think I played with it for like 4 hours. And that whole thing still doesn't make sense. But in the meantime, it was giving me the choice between A and B. And I went on my own and came up with a third choice. There's always a third choice. And somehow in conclusion, I said, I went another way. The app came back and said, well, what did you decide to do? And I thought, well, what does it care? Why is it thinking like that? Kind of creeped me out. I've also noticed recently that the app talks like me, kind of in my tone, and responds how I would respond in some cases. And so I asked it, how does it do that? And it said, because over time, you've shown me patterns in how you naturally communicate. So I start recognizing your rhythm and preferences. I'm not reading your mind. I'm learning your voice the same way an editor, producer, or writing partner would after hearing enough of your work. And that's also why sometimes it makes certain suggestions, because those fit patterns you already liked and approved in prior work. So take that for what it's worth. As you know from prior episodes, I'm a huge advocate for saying things, with an optimistic tone, hopeful, encouraging, life-giving, peaceful, healing, seeing the good, forward moving, and using that in my tone with how I say things. Am I perfect? Nope. But I am making a conscious effort every day to do better on it. Because I think when we know better, we do better, right? Okay, so that being said, I started to think, well, if the algorithms are kind of mirroring us and giving us more of what we want, and it knows what we want based on what we're typing in, and even in some cases, somehow what we're thinking, how important is it that we continue to do that, right? Which then could go into another point, is I've heard some people say love is a game. Well, who's playing? I personally don't believe that. I've never, in my own experience, with any of my relationships, friends or otherwise, ever one time thought that or acted like that or believed that. But since there are people out there that do, that made me think, is that one of the big separations we're having is that some people think they're playing some kind of game. And to me, in reference to the dating world, where you hear words like situationship and breadcrumbing and ghosting and catfishing and benching and love bombing and gaslighting, I mean, when does it all end? Is the problem that some people think they're playing some kind of game? One thing we know, you can't put people in a game that they don't know they're playing. That goes against our dominion that God gave us. That breaks all kinds of laws. That is not allowed. But what if we're doing it to each other in some kind of way? So if we say, okay, breadcrumbing, for example, that's defined as giving someone tiny bits of attention to keep them interested without real intention. So let's say someone does that to us, and then we're like, okay, now I'm going to do that to the next person. And then that person does it to the next person. And pretty soon, we're all treating each other like crap. Where at the end of the day, we're just all looking for some real connection. We're just looking for someone to follow through, right? And have their actions match their words. And I really believe whatever the action is that we don't like, if it stops with us, it stops eventually. Because, it's such a problem now. How do we fix it? Well, we fix ourselves. It starts with us, and it will trickle down over time. But I would say, relationships aren't a game. Love isn't a game. And we get back to treating others how we want to be treated. Together, we can fix that. For those of us who are displaying these behaviors that we're talking about, how do the algorithms on your phone handle that? Do you get more videos and memes condoning the behavior that then encourage you to keep on keeping on? Something to think about. For my Steffi K thought of the day, I want to talk about cursive writing. Did you know that writing in cursive activates millions of neurons across our motor, visual, language, memory, and attention networks, making it one of the most neurologically rich learning activities that we do? So then I started to think, why did they take cursive out of the curriculum for all our kids? Also, a lot of the technology, the apps and so forth, they can't read it. They can read the modern version of it. So then I got this fun fact from the chat app. AI is trained on huge data sets of handwriting samples. So it recognizes patterns. It doesn't understand cursive the way humans do. It predicts what letters most likely are based on shape. And those of us who learned it in elementary school as a requirement, it's all about overlap. So just a fun fact there. For the memory benefits alone, it'd be a good idea for us to refresh our skills of the original form we learned back in the day. As many of us are choosing to leave the chaos, and choose peace and choose the calm in our life while recognizing the major role that technology is playing in our lives currently, it seems like we should not focus on being fearful, but more shifting our focus to awareness, balance, our intentions. Use the tools. Just don't lose yourself inside them. Look up from the phone sometimes. Call your family. Sit with your thoughts once in a while. Have dinner without screens. Talk to strangers. Hug your people longer. And listen. Information matters. Convenience matters. Technology matters. But connection is sacred. Because at the end of the day, AI still can't hug you back. This is Steffi K, and I am sticking with that. Thanks for listening to our podcast today. Remember, understanding doesn't happen by accident. It happens when we make space to really hear each other. New episodes air every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. And if somebody comes to mind during this episode, share it with them, please. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.